Let's turn now to CTV's Colton Praill with more. So, Colton, let's begin with the caucus meeting. No agenda has been released. What are we expecting to hear, though, specifically from the finance minister, François-Philippe Champagne? What more can you tell us?
Yeah, Marcy, an important session for the Liberal government. Of course, their first full budget coming this fall. This is going to be a very crucial budget for them, not only because they're changing the way that it actually is calculated, they're splitting things up into an operating budget and a capital spending budget, but more than that, we've seen the spending promises. You talk about the billion-dollar fund, that 80 million is part that is going to Atlantic Canada, but it's a billion-dollar fund for small businesses, a $5 billion fund overall for tariff relief in sectors that have been hit hard by this trade war. We look at new NATO spending targets. We look at the capital infrastructure spend that's going to be coming through major projects. This government has not been shy about announcing some pretty significant changes to the financial landscape in Canada, and it's happening at a time where we are undergoing a trade war, where we're seeing the negative impact the trade impacts or the negative impact the trade dispute is having on our GDP. This is going to be a very difficult budget for François-Philippe Champagne to deliver, his first as finance minister. So far, he has gone through the pre-budget consultation process, so that means at this caucus, most of the feedback he'd be looking for from other members of the Liberal Party as far as what they want to see in the budget will have already been collected. Now it's about getting back to them with the final details, working out what the last iterations of this budget are going to be, tweaking it over the next couple of months, or next month and a half, really, before it's finally released for the public. There is, of course, still going to be big questions about where the savings are coming from. We've seen the Liberals moving forward on their plans to streamline government, yesterday unveiling an update on some 500 line items they think they can be more efficient in. Some of those do come with cost savings, but of course the amount of spending that we're seeing announced from this government vastly exceeds the estimated savings they had put into their budgetary plans during the election campaign. So there really is a need to be more creative and also to find more and to explain where this money is coming from, and that's going to be the challenge for this government, is preparing for that, especially because it's likely to be something they're challenged on directly by the opposition. We know the Conservatives have gone hard on cost of living. They did so in the last campaign. They're continuing to do so now. They've said they'll do so in this next session, and we're seeing in more and more polling that in some cases it is even more of a priority for Canadians than the U.S. trade dispute. So it's going to be a real challenge for the Liberal government to find not only the right messaging on this issue, but also a way to ensure that Canadians feel comfortable in the way the economy is heading, given all of the turbulence that exists right now.
Yeah, and speaking of going hard, from the Conservatives' perspective, we know that the Prime Minister is going to be asked repeatedly by Pierre Poilievre, where's the deal between Canada and the U.S.? What is happening on the tariff front? Colton, what are we hearing from the Liberal government on that? Where do things stand? And, you know, we don't need to remind people that this is what the Liberals ran their campaign on, this elbows up campaign that they will get a deal for Canada. So where are things right now?
Yeah, you've really seen a shift in tone and messaging from the Liberal government on this. It's gone from being much more elbows up, as you mentioned, during the campaign, to a framing of Canada has the best deal in the world. You hear them talk a lot about the effective tariff rate. Even Melanie Joly yesterday took time to explain that not only does Canada have 85% free trade because of the CUSMA agreement, something we've heard from the Prime Minister and from other ministers many times over the course of the summer, but she also highlighted that those sectoral tariffs that are having a devastating impact in Canada that cannot be diminished are also being paid by other countries. She talked about the fact that that 50% tariff on steel products isn't just for Canada. That is a 232 tariff that the U.S. has put on global steel products. And so you're seeing a redefining of the situation. Yes, Canada is still without a deal with the U.S. compared to other countries, but actually we have the best situation possible given that everyone is paying some kind of tariffs. Now, if that lands with Canadians or not, that part is still to be determined. Up until now, we've seen a lot of grace from Canadians and understanding that the U.S. president is quite volatile and that he's not necessarily the easiest person to deal with. However, you know, all of that has a bandwidth. And so how long can that last, especially as economic priorities slowly become more apparent, as the impact of this trade dispute becomes more apparent, as more Canadians are focused on their pocketbooks, not necessarily looking for a deal, but just looking for relief from the own financial implications that it's causing in their lives. That's going to be the challenge for the Liberal government. They've had a lot of bandwidth so far. They've had a quiet summer where they haven't had to face necessarily the same amount of opposition that they would normally because of the by-election for Pierre Poilievre, because the NDP have been focused on their own leadership challenges. That all changes as we head into this new session of Parliament, where the microscope and the lens really is going to be on this government and what it is they've been able to accomplish to date and are accomplishing currently.
Appreciate that reporting. Colton, thank you so much for that. We'll check in with you later this morning.